Hey, what is up mortals, it's Edward Sailor here, and before we get into today's video, there's something I'd like to say. I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time, so if you're interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if this video hits 500 likes by the end of the week, we will continue this what if. Thirdly, if you didn't know, only 41.3% of you guys are subscribed to us. So please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the story. It was a bright afternoon. Midoriya ate lunch with Ururaka, as she was the only person to actively eat with him. He noticed the only people eating alone were his brother Shoto and the mysterious student. Even Bakugou had some red-haired macho kid sitting with him, seemingly chatting up a one-sided storm with Bakugou, much to the angry blonde's dismay of course. The sheer intensity his fellow classmate extruded was enough to intimidate the likes of Bakugou and his adoptive brother. Midoriya remembered the scores of that test. The student and his brother were neck and neck almost exactly. The adoptive siblings didn't talk about it, but they were both certain this mysterious student was holding back. Just enough to not get noticed by their infamously strict teacher. The green-haired boy remembered his name to be Deku. As time passed, Ururaka and Midoriya walked to their classroom. They had talked to each other as they prepared for hero basic training. They had no idea who their next teacher could be, though they had hoped not every teacher was a soulless man like Aizawa was.
I am here!
It was All Might. His presence overpowering even the likes of Bakugou's delinquency or Zaiku's sheer imposing disposition. The students were overjoyed to see the symbol of peace in their classroom. Especially Midoriya, even though he spent most of his life raised by the number one's hero's arch-rival, Endeavor. For as long as Midoriya could remember, he had idolized this man. When his mother was alive, they would both watch the one video clip Inko had downloaded on the family computer. It was of All Might saving hundreds of people from a burning building. It was the very clip that made Midoriya want to be a hero. Everyone was chatting amongst themselves about the arrival of the number one hero and the symbol of peace, All Might. Even Bakugou seemed somewhat surprised by the towering man's presence. The two who didn't seem to emote were predictably to Midoriya, Shoto, and Deku. Midoriya understood why Shoto seemed indifferent towards All Might. He was raised to want to surpass him. Though no one knew why Deku didn't concern himself with All Might. All Might had told them all what hero basic training entailed, combat training. Bakugou was most pleased with this revelation. Even with his newfound concern about Midoriya, his love of fighting remained true. Even as a kid, the blonde delinquent loved to get into fights amongst his peers, solely to show them what true power was. All Might had revealed to them the students' costumes as the racks came out of the walls. Each of them had their costumes in each slot. The students were excited. It was the first day of school and they already got their own costumes, or in Bakugou's case, fight each other. A couple of minutes had passed as the students made their way to the training area in their costumes. Midoriya, despite having idolized All Might basically since conception, had his costume made to look like his adoptive father's costume, sans the flames that usually engulf it.
Kiss ass.
Shoto thought to himself as he saw Midoriya's costume. He figured that he would keep it to himself for the time being, as for some reason Deku had some issue with Shoto being cold towards his younger brother. All Might presented them with the simple rules of the tournament. Either the heroes must capture all the villains, or secure the bomb, or the villains must capture all the heroes, or survive until the allotted time had been up. Midoriya and Ururaka were on Team A. Ururaka was openly ecstatic to be working with Midoriya, while the emerald-haired boy tried to be on a cooler persona, though he was just as ecstatic to be working with the plucky brunette. He had already taken quite a fancy towards the girl, due to her being the first person thus far to even care to talk to him. Shoto and Soji were on Team B. Soji didn't exactly want to work with the red and white-haired kid, mainly on the grounds that he seemed particularly unpleasant towards his seemingly unhinged adoptive brother. At least that's what the narrative evolved to. The rumor that had been accidentally spread by the blonde turned from freak accident to manslaughter at best. Nonetheless, Soji decided he would remain professional with his new teammate. Team C was Yaoyorozu and Zaiku. As usual, Zaiku had exerted the same unreadable intensity he had since the minute school started. Team D was Bakugou and Ida. Bakugou was pumped up. This was his time to bust some heads and get rewarded for it. All Might had drawn the teams to face each other. The first matchup was Team A versus Team D. Ida looked overly concerned. He leaned over towards Bakugou and in a not-so-quiet whisper asked him, "Bakugou, is that not the person you said?" Ida paused, clearing his thoughts and preparing himself for what he was about to say. "Killed his mom?" Bakugou's crazed smile withered into an annoying scowl. As he turned to tell his compatriot to silence himself, he noticed Midoriya glared at the blonde. Midoriya had heard Ida, thanks mainly to the nerdy kid's loudmouth. Once again, the blonde delinquent was the root of Midoriya's strife. For the first time in his life, Midoriya's blood began to boil as he thought of all the torment this person put him through as a child. Could he not escape this torture for once in his life? Midoriya's face was one of tame, intense hatred. His eyes were piercing the blonde. This did not go unnoticed by Ururaka or Ida, as they both grew fearful for Bakugou. The teams had begun setting themselves up after All Might had made the announcement. As Midoriya and Ururaka approached the door, Ururaka turned towards the green-haired boy. He was still visibly seething. While she didn't know what it was like, she could understand why he was livid. "Deku?" Ururaka spoke up, her voice gentle enough to try and reach Midoriya without feeding into his apparent anger. "Are you okay?" Young Midoriya took a while to answer his brown-haired companion. At the moment, he was boring a hole into the metal door simply by staring it down. "I'll be fine," Midoriya said, his tone as flat as the people he had grown to know as generally unpleasant. "I have a score to settle though." Meanwhile, Bakugou and Ida discussed their strategy for keeping Midoriya and Ururaka away. Especially Midoriya, as both of them had noticed Midoriya's wrath towards the blonde boy. "We should both stay here, that way when they show up, we can both take them on," Ida suggested. "I doubt they can match our combined speed and destructive power." Bakugou thought it over. He was analyzing plans of his very own. Beneath his brutish exterior was a cunning warrior. After a while, Bakugou turned towards his glasses toning ally.
No!
Bakugou growled. The tone of his voice was enough to make Ida flinch for a second.
I have a better idea.
Midoriya and Ururaka scoured the complex, searching for any villains or the entrance to the room with the bomb. Midoriya in particular was looking for Bakugou. As they trudged through the halls, Midoriya replayed all the times the delinquent had pushed him around and had made his life hell. The welling rage caused him to pick up the pace, walking slightly faster than his teammate. Midoriya was looking for a fight. For the first time in his life, he wanted Bakugou to pay for what he did. With Midoriya's pace, it didn't take long for them to reach the second floor.
Deku!
The familiar screech caught the boy's attention. Midoriya spun around to face his rival, his eyes affixed on the ashy yellow-haired thug's location.
Bakugou.
Midoriya hissed. Though the delinquent would never admit this, he was taken aback by Midoriya. Vicious tone aside, this was the first time Midoriya had referred him by his name, and not Kachan. This was Midoriya's tell that he meant business. Turning to his left, Bakugou began to flee by blasting himself away, just like he did during the quirk apprehension test. Midoriya's stoic glare deformed itself into an enraged, toothy grin, something he subconsciously picked up from his current nemesis. "Ururaka, find the bomb!" The green-haired boy spat through his teeth. "I'll handle the fleeing villain!" "No, Izuku, he's already gone. Let's just find the bomb!" Her words fell on deaf ears as Midoriya started using his fire quirk to propel himself forward, the hot air pushing him off the ground. Midoriya followed the sounds of explosions, leading him towards his enemy. It didn't take Midoriya long to catch up with Katsuki. Luckily, that's exactly what the delinquent wanted. In the heat of the moment, Midoriya stopped using his fire to propel him, instead wanting to land a flying kick on his former bully. As the formerly meek boy flew towards Bakugou, the atomic blonde slid out from under Midoriya. Raising his right arm, he pulled back the chrome handle on his gauntlet, revealing a pin under it. Pulling it out, the gauntlet released a stream of conflagration at young Midoriya. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you're interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. As the concentrated explosion made its way towards Midoriya, the boy had to propel himself using his fire once more. Pushing himself to an upright position, Bakugou's blast only forced Midoriya forward, hitting the glass window. If he had gone any faster, he would have surely been knocked out of the building. Picking himself up, his face went back to an expression of contained anger, rather than the feral rage he had exhibited beforehand. "You made my childhood hell, Bakugou! Was that not enough for you? You had to ruin my entire school here too?" Midoriya snarled at his former tormentor. "Will I never be rid of you?" Deep down, Bakugou knew this to be true. Within a single day, Bakugou had managed to throttle any chance of the angry green-haired boy having an easy first year in high school. But now wasn't the time for apologies. He had to pass this exam. He wouldn't go into the first day of school already having failed something. A cocky grin began stretching across the ashy yellow-haired boy's face. He reached his arms to his side, as if beckoning Midoriya to attack him. With a scoff, Bakugou spoke.
"You're the one to talk, late bloomer!"
Bakugou snarled.
"I couldn't get you away from him for years. I should be the one asking you if I'll never be rid of you."
It was obvious to everyone, even Midoriya, that Bakugou was simply egging him on. But Midoriya was furious that his former bully wouldn't even acknowledge his original point. The boy looked even more determined to firmly plant Bakugou into the ground. Once again, Midoriya launched himself upward with his flames. Bakugou sneered at this pathetic display.
"Always were the uncreative one, huh, Deku?"
As Bakugou began to slide from out under Midoriya again, the green-haired boy smirked. He had successfully fallen right into his trap. Suddenly, Midoriya stopped propelling himself forward just before Bakugou was under him, instead pointing his hands downward at the delinquent. Bakugou's eyes widened as he realized what Midoriya was doing. The streams of fire from his hands grew more intense and increased in radius. In a matter of seconds, everything under Midoriya was bathed in fire. This startled everyone that was watching greatly, especially All Might. This show of violence clearly didn't help Midoriya's case among his classmates. In an instant, All Might grabbed the microphone to try to communicate with Bakugou.
"Bakugou, come in, Bakugou!"
Luckily, since Bakugou was already in motion, he wasn't smothered in the flames Midoriya tried to douse him in. That wasn't to say, however, that Bakugou was unscathed. Covered in first to second degree burns, Bakugou struggled to get up. But due to sheer will and determination, he managed to be upright. Bakugou placed a finger on his earpiece in response to All Might's worried cries.
"Shut your trap, old man! I'm fine!"
The blonde student barked at the hero. The concrete beneath them was blackened and emitting smoke. The gray rough floor began to crackle. The two brawling youths realized any more damage done to the floor using their quirks would cause it to give away. Instead, they had begun to inch towards each other. Their costumes sizzled at the touch of the burnt pavement. Their forearms blocked the sides of their face as they both began to crouch, protecting their stomachs. They intended to finish this the way men of old used to, through a bout of fisticuffs. Bakugou, making the first move, swung a right hook at the side of Midoriya's head. The emerald-haired boy ducked and bobbed under it, reciprocating with an elbow to the left side of Bakugou's cranium. The yellow-haired kid stumbled, leaning against the wall parallel to him. The shrimpy child he once knew had definitely gotten stronger, and it showed. The idea that his strength was getting challenged, infuriated the arrogant youth. Using the hand that was against the wall, he pushed himself forward to gain momentum. Bakugou swung overhead using his left arm. Midoriya smirked. It was clear his arch-rival was getting desperate if he was going to use an attack like that. The green-haired boy rose his left arm, blocking Bakugou's pathetic attempt at getting a hit in. He then moved in to deliver a right jab to his former bully's chest. The delinquent smiled widely to himself. This was exactly what he wanted, and Midoriya had given it to him in full. Using his quick thinking, Bakugou grabbed the boy's right arm to halt his jab, and, utilizing the momentum of Midoriya's jab, pulled the green-haired child closer to him, raising his knee so that Midoriya's sternum would collide with it. The force of the knee to his chest was enough to daze the boy. His vision blurred, and his body went limp for a second. This was enough time for Bakugou to swing Midoriya into the wall behind the blonde, using the right arm he had grabbed. The boy barely had enough time to put his free hand behind his head to try and cushion the impact of his head slamming into the grey wall. The blow rattled his hand, though the pain was enough to jolt him out of his dazed state. With no other clear option, Midoriya lunged his head forward, smacking it into Bakugou's face. Blood pooled from the blonde's nose as he reeled back in pain, letting go of his current enemy's arm. Meanwhile, Ururaka had found the room with the bomb in it. She had noticed Ida was monologuing to no one in particular in something of a Saturday morning cartoon villain voice. This was truly a sight to behold, to Ururaka at least. Unable to contain her amusement, she barely stifled a laugh through her helmet. As he turned towards her in a classic supervillain fashion, flicking his arm upward as if he were brandishing some sort of cape.
Hark! Who goes there?
Ida called out. This was far too much for the perky brunette. She figured the jig was up, and albeit hesitantly revealed herself to the campy villain that was Ida, as Ida monologued about his knowledge on Ururaka's quirk and how he cleared out the room of anything the girl could use against him. Ururaka pressed onto her earphone to communicate with Midoriya. Bakugou and Midoriya continued to brawl, fists flying at the other like they were bullets. The two appeared to be evenly matched until the green-haired boy received a message from his teammate.
Hey Deku, are you done with your fight with Bakugou? Ida spotted me, I'm sorry.
Ururaka paused as if she was trying to read the situation.
Monologuing at me right now. He's not trying to apprehend me right now, so you should have some time. I'm on the 3rd floor of the building.
The test? Somehow the boy had completely forgotten he was in a test. Suddenly, without thinking, Midoriya spun around to try and run towards the 3rd floor. This was Bakugou's chance. Leaping backward, he pointed his gauntlet at the smoldering concrete below Midoriya. Pulling the pin, he sent a stream of explosions at the floor beneath them. Because it didn't contain the maximum amount of his nitroglycerin-like sweat, it wasn't too strong, but it still produced exactly what he needed. It was all over now. In one fell swoop, Midoriya was buried beneath a pile of rubble. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video and editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that is in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have a fantastic day.